Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ali Chiasson. We start with a developing story of that plane crash at Toronto's Pearson Airport. It happened at around 2:30 p.m. The Delta Airlines jet flipped over on the runway as it was landing. The aircraft was flying in from Minneapolis. Dale Manukduk joins us live from outside the Greater Toronto Airports Authority HQ. Dale, you have been covering this for us all day and into the evening. What's the latest?
Well, Ali, just a scary, scary day for people aboard Delta Airlines Flight 4819. The plane hit the tarmac and completely turned over. Officials say that passengers began to self-evacuate before responders arrived on scene to assist. And while there are injuries, there are no reported fatalities. The cause of the crash remains unknown. We're getting some information and some competing opinions as to the role that weather may have played.
We just landed. Our plane crashed.
A horrifying scene at Pearson International Airport as crews sprayed down a plane flipped onto its roof. This video captured by John Nelson.
We skidded like on our side and then flipped over on our back. Where we ended up, there was like a big fireball out this left side of the plane.
At approximately 2:30 p.m., airport officials say Delta Airlines Flight 4819 from Minneapolis to Toronto, operated by subsidiary Endeavour Air, was involved in a single aircraft collision.
Everyone on that plane suddenly became very close in terms of how to help one another, how to console one another, and that was powerful. But yeah, there was definite what now?
Drop it! Come on!
Pete Kokov, a skier, posted this video escaping the plane, captioned, "Being alive feels pretty cool today." Air traffic controller audio captured the fluid situation.
The story here is field's going to be closed for an indefinite amount of time. I believe there was a crash or some sort of accident on runway 23. Obviously, a lot of new information is coming out here, so I'm just going to hold you guys briefly here.
The plane was carrying 4 crew and 76 passengers, among them 22 Canadians. The other passengers were multinational. Airport emergency workers mounted a textbook response, reaching the site within minutes and quickly evacuating the passengers. We stood up our emergency operations center with Delta Airlines and representatives from fire, police, paramedics, security, and our federal agency partners. Again, there were no fatalities.
Officials say 18 people were injured and taken to local hospitals. Initial information from Orange Air Ambulance said 3 people had critical injuries, including a child who was airlifted to Sick Kids Hospital. The cause of the crash remains under investigation.
This is an active investigation. It's very early on. It's really important that we do not speculate. What we can say is the runway was dry and there was no crosswind conditions.
This aviation expert says weather was likely a factor.
There seems to have been a gust of wind that came, across the airplane's path that caused this airplane to flip totally on its roof, which is extremely rare. But given the strength of the winds that we have going on in Montreal and Toronto these days, this afternoon, not surprising.
We are experiencing operational delays.
Pearson Airport was effectively shut down, leaving several travelers stranded.
We got to be thankful for the people who survived. This is not a big deal.
At 5 p.m., flights resumed. Hamilton International Airport also reported it was accepting diverted aircrafts. So again, Ali, Pearson International Airport remains operational. Deborah Flint, the president and CEO of the GTAA, says that 3 runways are operational, 2 remain closed for the investigation and could be shut down for the next several days. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada is heading up this investigation with their U.S. counterparts here to assist. But again, we have 18 people injured from a plane crash, no fatalities, thankfully. Ali?
Thanks for this, Dale. Our Dale Manukduk reporting from Pearson Airport. Turning now to the Ontario election. On this Family Day, the province's political leaders faced off against each other for the last time in the election campaign. The debate saw fiery exchanges over things like affordability, healthcare, and education. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop has the details.
Live from the Canadian Broadcasting Centre, I'm David.
For much of the Ontario leaders' debate, it was 3 candidates against Doug Ford. Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie landing a personal blow on the PC leader.
You were raised privileged with a silver spoon in your mouth. You didn't have to work for anything. You got a company handed to you, Doug, so you don't understand how expensive things are today. I bet you couldn't tell me what the cost of eggs are.
She also brought up health care, her party promising a family doctor for all Ontarians in 4 years. Similar promises from all the parties.
To tell the people at home who lost loved ones while they were on the wait list what you did over the past 7 years to fix our healthcare system, because it's broken. We're in crisis. And you're bragging about what you've done. It's been an abysmal failure.
There's a reason why Dr. Jane Philpott, a liberal minister, comes to our team. It's very simple because she sees the vision. She sees that we're building healthcare.
The Green Party leader hammered Ford on affordability measures and those checks for all Ontarians.
And it's not fair that Mr. Ford has handed out $200 checks to millionaires and billionaires like Galen Weston, the guy gouging you at the grocery store, when so many people can't afford to even pay for groceries.
Well, let me tell you, folks, it's your money. That's what you paid into. And when we saw more revenue come up to the coffers, we believe that it goes back to the people to stimulate the economy.
The NDP leader and Ford tangled over education.
We actually hired 9,000 more educators,
No, Doug.
even though the population of students have been stagnant around 2 million.
Parents know that you're
9,000
not
more
telling the
educators.
truth about this. The class sizes are huge. We cannot find education assistants or teachers or other caring, qualified adults to work in our schools because you took them to court because you tried to freeze their wages.
In the closing statements, in a rare switch, the Liberal leader set her sights on the NDP.
I'm asking those of you who voted NDP in the last election to vote Liberal, to vote for a government that will fix our healthcare system and to get you a family doctor.
Asked about that later, NDP leader Marit Stiles said she believes for voters, it'll be about who they can trust.
To make their lives more affordable, to fight rising costs, to fix our healthcare system, which, frankly, both of those parties have contributed to.
Following the debate, Doug Ford left without taking questions from reporters. That's even though all the parties had agreed to take part in media scrums. The same thing happened after the only other debate in this campaign. Doug Ford now hasn't faced questions from reporters here in Ontario in a week. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, no matter where you live in Ontario, you likely spent some of your long weekend shoveling. In Toronto, city officials say it's going to take weeks to remove all of that snow from our streets. Brittany Billette has more.
It's a dig out that'll be one to remember, the cleanup after 3 big blasts of snow.
It's a little overwhelming because we haven't had it in a bunch of years.
I shoveled myself, I shoveled the back. By the time I shoveled the back, I had to shovel the front again.
According to Environment Canada, about 25 centimeters of snow fell across Toronto and the GTA this weekend, dumped on top of 20 centimeters that fell last Wednesday. The city says it's working around the clock to clear it all out, but it could take a while before life goes back to normal.
We expect that snow removal may take up to 3 weeks. As you know, we will be working continuously on this task, and we will try to get it done as quickly as we can.
The city says it has 1,400 pieces of equipment working to clear the snow.
It is an extremely time-consuming, slow process.
Officials say it could take up to 10 hours to get snow into a dump truck from a single kilometer of residential road.
I understand. It's a lot of snow, and at the same time, it's difficult.
It's disappointing. We have to make that a priority because especially people with wheelchairs, people with walkers, people with strollers.
Though roads and transit will continue to be slow moving, on the TTC, the situation is improving. Line 1 saw regular service resume Monday afternoon following a shutdown on parts of the tracks that led to long shuttle bus lines at Bloor-Yonge Station.
This is what happens in a major weather event. We do acknowledge that it's difficult to get around, but nevertheless, the system is moving.
Drivers are being warned not to park on snow and streetcar routes or to avoid driving altogether.
This is not just a storm. We got a lot of snow. So if you're not comfortable, don't put yourself and others in that situation where you're jeopardizing public safety. We had 2 officers that were hurt this past weekend. One had to be taken to hospital. He had a vehicle stopped on the Don Valley Parkway, and somebody not paying attention rear-ended him.
Looking ahead to the rest of the week, forecasters say colder than normal temperatures are on the way, and that's on top of strong winds. And, if you can believe it, more snow.
We could be seeing some additional accumulations, maybe 5 to 10 centimeters of additional accumulations, especially in northern York and northern Durham regions, and maybe a few more centimeters in the city of Toronto itself.
Dreadful news to some, but for snow lovers, no problem.
When I was going up the slide, I need lots of snow, so I get to go up the slide. Because at the park, we were sliding down, and there was a bunch of snow at the end of the slide, so we would slide down and then hit the snow.
We have like a huge pile of snow on our lawn, so we've been like playing on that, and we've been using our sled and just like sliding down a little hill. It's really, really fun.
We don't mind. We can walk to everywhere that we need to go around here, and we'll just park our car and be fine.
Brittany Billette, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, the snow also walloped eastern Ontario. Ottawa residents are dealing with mountains of snow piled up on residential streets. The OPP reported dozens of collisions on area highways over the weekend. Officials at the Ottawa airport say about 34 centimeters of snow fell, leading to dozens of delayed and canceled flights. CBC's meteorologist Chris Potter joins us now with some more on the storm and what we can expect this week. Hey, Chris, I am afraid to ask, but what do you have for us?
Yeah, Ali, we do have a little bit more snow potentially tonight and through the day tomorrow. Not going to be the same caliber. This is driven by lake effect activity coming in off of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. And that's what tends to happen after we get a system snow producing widespread snow. As it clears, we tend to get into colder winds and stronger winds, and that's exactly what's happening. Across the GTA, most areas saw anywhere from 20 to 30 centimeters, and that seems to be the average snowfall accumulations for this past weekend, Saturday and Sunday, across southern Ontario. In terms of the temperatures, -1 is our normal daytime high, -9.6 is our normal overnight low. Today, we only peaked at around -7, and of course, with those gusty westerly winds, it felt like the minus teens, and it will likely feel like the -20s in the GTA tonight. Not quite to the caliber, the conditions for the extreme cold warning that's currently issued for Windsor up towards London, holding just southwest of the GTA and the Golden Horseshoe, but it's still going to be a cold night and a cold morning tomorrow. It won't feel like the -30s, but it's definitely going to feel like the -20s, so consider that before sending the kids off to school, and yourself if you're going to work. So, with the cold air as well, we're getting into lake effect snow, local snow squalls, and they continue to churn off of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. So if you are traveling north of the city, be prepared for quickly changing weather conditions. You could go from a few flurries to whiteouts, and that's what I got into on my drive down from Barrie today. We're still going to see that lake effect persist tonight. From time to time, a couple of bursts will move in towards the city of Toronto, but once again, it will hold generally north and east of the city through the day tomorrow. So that's where you're traveling. Obviously, be prepared for that. Once we get into Wednesday, everything starts to settle down. We should have variable clouds, at times more sun the morning, at times a little bit more cloud, but it does look like the flurries will be isolated closer to Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. Here's a quick peek at the snowfall potential. As you can see, like we've been talking about, off of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, that's where the streamers will reside, and that's where 20, 30, maybe even 40 centimeters of additional accumulation is expected. But in the GTA, maybe a centimeter, 2, maybe 3 at most. It's really the north end. In terms of overnight lows tonight, around -12, -16 in Windsor, -16 in Ottawa. For the day tomorrow, not much of a rebound, I'm afraid. Temperatures will likely peak at around -8. It's still going to feel like the minus mid-teens, and it's generally going to feel like the minus mid-teens across the entire forecast region, and it gets even colder across the GTA as we get through Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning. So if the winds hold, and they should weaken by tomorrow, it does look like they'll produce wind chills close to -30. -7 for Wednesday, -7 for Thursday, just a slight chance of a few flurries. Friday, a break from active weather. By Saturday, we cloud back over, and there likely will be flurries, maybe a little bit of snow, Allie, by Sunday.
Thanks, Chris. Welcome back. A Barrie woman says she has missed her train and has also almost been hit by cars, all at the Allendale GO station. And that's because people without permits are parking in accessible spots. She says she has raised the issue with Metrolinx before, but it continues to be a problem. Talia Ricci reports.
These are accessible parking spots at the Allendale GO station in Barrie, and commuters like Heather Morgan need them to park and get on the train safely. But often, that's actually not an option for her.
The tap-on spot is right by the accessible parking spots. And so what people do is they come and they drop off their fully able-bodied passengers using the accessible spots. That means that they're filling those spots up when I need to be able to come in and park. So I've had issues with missing trains. I've had issues with people coming within a couple of inches of my ramp. And I'm just waiting for the horrible day when somebody takes my ramp off.
It's an issue she says she's brought to the attention of Metrolinx multiple times, but it keeps happening.
I've come in and had like all 7 spots filled with people just idling and no spot for my van to go. I've sat on my horn for 5 minutes straight and not had any response. I would say 80% of the people seem to know that they're not supposed to be there, and that doesn't bother them.
Morgan wants to see better enforcement to discourage this. Things like signage indicating the accessibility spots are not a drop-off zone, more fines being handed out, and adding more spots to tap on near the actual drop-off zone. In a statement, Metrolinx says customers will be fined $300 if they stop or park in an accessible spot without a valid permit. CBC News asked Metrolinx for some stats around how many of those fines have been handed out, but they didn't respond to that. The statement also said clear signage indicates how to access the appropriate pickup and drop-off areas to ensure pedestrians can safely get in and out of their vehicles during busy times at the station, and that it encourages customers to report incidents of misuse.
So this has been an area of concern for me for a really long time.
Disability advocates say this is a long-standing issue in many places, and while they also want to see better enforcement, they want drivers to understand how their actions impact others.
My son is in a wheelchair. We use a side entry van. If we don't have access to that spot, I can't get him out of that car. People just think it's a spot, but it's not. To me, this is a barrier. This is a physical barrier to access for individuals who, have a disability and require that. So let's just do our part to remove that barrier that doesn't need to be there.
I think they probably don't understand that someone that is using a wheelchair van doesn't have the luxury of just choosing another spot further back, that literally they have to cancel their trip and go home.
Morgan hopes that speaking out about this provokes change so that people like her who need these spots can get to where they want to go on time and safely.
Like, my experience of GO Train is that it's one of the most accessible public transit options in Ontario. It's certainly one of the most accessible transit options anywhere I've traveled in the world. And so when all of the steps are there except this last one, the parking step, it's really frustrating because you've put so much effort and energy and money into infrastructure. Why not solve the final problem so that it's a seamless experience for customers?
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Barrie.
Toronto's annual Winter Stations competition is back at Woodbine Beach. The city unveiled this year's installations this morning.
What has always been my favorite thing about this, I think this is my 6th or 7th time doing it now, is just bringing all of Toronto, Torontonians, folks from across the region out to experience the beach during the winter time.
People braved the cold weather today to take part in the tour showcasing the winning 6 interactive art pieces. The city says they received over 300 proposals. For the last 11 years, artists and designers have been challenged to transform the beach's lifeguard stations into dynamic pieces of public art. The stations will be on display until March 30th, so plenty of time to check those out. Stay with us. Welcome back. The deadline for an extension for Blue Jay star Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is fast approaching. Guerrero Jr., who's entering the final year of his contract, was expected to arrive at training camp today for his physical. Instead, he was working out at a private gym in nearby Tampa, just as the hours ticked down to the deadline for contract talks. The 25-year-old first baseman has until Tuesday to report to camp. He has said, if talks between his agent and the team do not result in a deal by then, he will not continue contract negotiations with the team. Guerrero Jr. is coming off a strong season last year, hitting 30 home runs. Team Canada took to the ice tonight in the Four Nations face-off, playing Finland. It was do or die for the Canadians, but they pulled off the W, securing a spot in the Four Nations final. Julia Wong has the story.
Scores! McKinnon has another!
Team Canada left it all on the ice during a showdown against Finland, pulling off a 5-3 victory and setting up a rematch against the United States in the Four Nations final.
I think Canada will win. It'll be tough, but they're going to win.
It's no secret things are tense between the North American neighbors. At Monday's game in Boston, with glowing hearts, light jeers during the singing of O Canada. With U.S. President Donald Trump's escalating threats of trade tariffs and making Canada the 51st American state, hockey fans say Thursday's game will be different than a normal matchup.
There's already so much tension building between the two, so I feel like it's going to be such a good game to watch.
There's no denying the final will feel personal for some. National pride is at stake and on display.
I wear it all the time, and anytime there's some sort of national event, like even with the World Cup soccer, we open up early, and people are really into being Canadian right now.
This sports analyst says hockey can be an analogy for life.
It's an opportunity for Canada to, to stick it to the U.S. in some ways without actually really sticking it to them. I mean, it's a sports game that at the end of the day, it's sports. It doesn't matter, but it feels like it does.
For the team, the focus is simple.
Like, even if the U.S. wasn't in the final, we wouldn't be like, we don't want to be in. We want in this. And we came here for this purpose. And now it's win one more game.
We feel like we could beat those guys, and, we plan on playing a little better Thursday.
And perhaps an opportunity to settle some differences off the ice.
Maybe the best way to talk about foreign policy is to beat them in hockey.
That patriotism will be put to the test during the final Thursday night. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
That's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. But before we go, the cold weather did not stop people from heading outside to enjoy Family Day. People laced up the skates, taking to the ice along the Bentway. That's a skating trail underneath the Gardiner Expressway here in Toronto. It's actually the last day of skating along the Bentway before it transforms for other events. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.